Studying the Word of God can be difficult. One of the easiest ways to study the Bible is one verse at a time, but at times it can seem overwhelming. Our goal in this podcast is to wrestle with the text and dive in deeper. We pray that this edifies you and empowers you to fall deeper in love with the Bible and Jesus. Welcome to Everyday Theology.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Everyday Theology. I'm your special guest today, Max Poseguy, here with my friends John and Ian, and Mr. Guy Parkerson is here too.
Hello. Man, round of applause.
Yes, but did you notice what he just did? You're not included in his list of friends.
I'm just kidding.
His friends Ian and
we're
John,
friends.
and also Guy is here.
Well, hey, this is just how it goes. Everybody makes fun of me. So
I knew that. That's why I led with
I
this,
am the one with the biggest target on his
It's
back,
been me my entire life, so this is a really strange experience.
Yeah, it's nice.
Like,
but
that's why I like hanging out with you guys.
yeah, Max, welcome. That was that deep, sultry, manly voice you had going on there. That was a nice change.
I think I might have to just be the intro guy from now on.
Yeah, I think you found your calling.
I did. I
Yeah,
think so.
I mean, you have the face for radio. You do.
Wow. well, on that note,
Have you guys seen I think it was Wayne's World 2? They have Mr. Scream, and they go to the radio station, and the guy who has like Handsome Dan is the radio jockey, and he's like not handsome, and then Mr. Scream is this guy. He's like, Mr. Scream, what do you think? And he just yells in the background, and he's like really handsome.
Nice.
It's funny. It's a joke.
Nice.
John with his movie.
You should be Mr. Scream. That's what I'm saying.
all right, that sounds
You
good
just-
to me.
I'm
Just
sure
show up
that's
and
funny.
scream.
I haven't seen Wayne's World 2, so
Because you're a Christian.
yeah.
So let me
I'm
explain
a
why
Christian
it's
that
funny.
doesn't waste my time.
Let me-
Yeah.
So-
I redeem every moment for the Lord. John.
So you two losers took the week off. We had a special guest this week.
We did.
Mm-hmm.
We did. Yes. And John and I, we just played golf all week and video games. We
Wait,
didn't do
aren't
anything.
you off work this week?
I am.
So
Yeah.
you're a loser
Uh-huh. Yeah, I am.
by those standards.
But
Nice.
the special guest was based all around apologetics.
Yeah. So we started this last year and we hosted an apologetics conference from an outside organization. We just hosted for them. And our people loved it. We had a great weekend last year, and we decided let's do this every year, but we're going to do our own. It's not hard to run a conference, to set up the schedule and all that. And the fan favorite last year was Alan Schleman from the organization Stand to Reason. So if anybody's read Greg Kokel's books, Tactics and others, that's his organization, Stand to Reason.
One of the top 5 books that you need to read if you're into apologetics.
Absolutely. If you ever want to share your faith.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a how to share your faith book, evangelism book. I mean, so good, so helpful. So he's got this organization, and he's got 5 or 6 people who travel and do things like what we had. So Alan Schleman was our guest. Again, he spoke a couple sessions last year, stuck around and preached on the following Sunday last year, but this time he did all of it. So he did 2 sessions Friday night, 3 sessions on Saturday, and he preached Sunday morning. And we love Alan. Alan is such a great guy, a genuine follower of the Lord who loves God and loves His Word and loves teaching people how to defend their faith. And he fits right in with our congregation. And we had a really, really good weekend with a whole bunch of people who came, and even from a few other churches in the area.
I noticed that.
Yeah. So we've got another church in town that actively promoted it for us. The Providence Church, which is actually right down the street from our church, and Andrew's the pastor there, is a dear friend. And
Was Andrew there?
he was not able to be
Okay,
there.
I haven't met him
He
yet.
had some folks come in from out of town, and so he wasn't able to be there. He would have been. And then we're promoting a conference for him that he's hosting in March for family dynamics and all of that.
Andrew Rappaport is their guest.
Yes.
He is. I think he's
Yeah.
as
He's
important.
Dynamite,
Yeah, he's
dynamite speaker, and so we'll be, you'll hear more about that. In fact, the childcare for his conference is at our church, so that we can host for them. And
That's so cool that we can partner with
that's how
another
it's supposed
solid
to
church
be.
like that.
Yeah. Typically churches don't play well in the sandbox together, but we do.
And he's right across the street.
I mean, you could hit a pitching wedge from our parking lot to his. And
Well,
I couldn't.
well, I can neither confirm or deny whether I've actually done that.
I could probably throw my driver over there because that's typically how I golf.
You got some
Yeah.
practice at that?
Yeah.
So, Ian and I stayed at this place once in Massachusetts, and we were a stone's throw from the ocean. And there's a video online of on Facebook of Ian throwing. You threw a rock from the house into the ocean. And I'm like, we're a stone's throw, and I couldn't do it.
Yeah, he tried.
I kept trying and trying. I'm like, I quit.
We were so thrilled that because we've got ocean on both sides of this house that he and I lived in for 5 months when we were going to plant the church, and like, oh, we're right there, and yeah, stone's throw. No, only for some.
You throw like a girl, John?
That's offensive.
Sexist. It's terrible.
I'm not.
Yes, he does, but he did fine. He got really close.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was close.
So, do you guys remember the first time you had
Why are we talking about
an
this? I'm
encounter? I know we got sidetracked as
sorry.
usual. Do you guys remember the first time that you got introduced to apologetics?
Oh.
No.
You really don't? Like, because I mean, you guys have been Christians a lot longer than I have.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Bible college and seminary, so we had some early on teaching in school.
It's just been kind of like peppered throughout, but there really hasn't been a wholesale like, yes, I want to learn about apologetics for me until recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So neither one of you have. I mean, surely you've been in a position where you tell somebody you're a professing Christian and they challenge you.
Oh yeah,
of course.
You know,
yeah. Stop calling me Shirley. I couldn't help it.
Gosh, dang it.
We're finally doing something good.
But
yeah.
just keep going. No, yeah. You were saying,
But
Professor?
So, I mean, I remember a sermon from when I was a kid on Easter, and the Easter sermon that year was evidence for the resurrection, and I mean, solid stuff. I mean, I would have been in middle school or high school, and I still remember that sermon, and not too long into professional ministry and preaching, I began to teach and preach at least some. Mm-hmm. Early on, I did some comparative world religion stuff, in a special class, and not too long after 9/11, we need to talk about Islam. Nobody knew a lot about Islam until 2001, when again a caricatured view of Islam attacked our country, and we needed to learn why that is, and what's a jihadist and those kinds of things.
Yeah, because that's another branch of. I mean, you're not just defending your faith against atheism. You're defending.
Right.
Yeah, it's against religions, cults.
The majority of people in the world are highly religious.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not just proving the existence of God. There's far more to defending your faith than just that. That's a pretty narrow subset of people. Most people believe in some kind of deity out there, and it becomes not proving the existence of God, but the existence of the real God. That's a different thing.
And I don't know why I'm just always more drawn to the defense against Christianity from an atheistic point of view. I don't know if that's just because
you were an atheist
where we are. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, that's your story.
Yeah.
So
all my friends are non-believers.
Yeah.
that's
that
a
makes
large
sense.
part of our culture too. I mean, atheism, naturalism, just this post. I mean, I think it's becoming more and more true. It's definitely more true on the coasts, but it's becoming more and more true here too. It's just, this is a post-Christian society.
Yeah. Post-truth, even. There's no standard of right and wrong morality, your truth, my truth, all that nonsense. Again, it starts liberal. It's a European thing, then it heads over to Canada and ekes down to the coast, and then comes in the Midwest where we are. But with a global culture like we have, I mean, you have the world in your pocket on your phone, so it doesn't take long for this stuff to spread.
So do you guys have like a canned answer if somebody comes up to you and says, "Oh, you believe in God? Give me evidence."
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a quick canned response?
No, not necessarily.
No.
I mean, I do for the gospel.
Yeah.
To explain the gospel, which is a far more common experience for me to have than prove the existence of God. But again, I'm a pastor, so most people aren't surprised when they find out that I believe in God.
Yeah.
I've got a vested interest in believing in God. It's salvation, the gospel, who Jesus is, what he's done. That's the number one thing I get. So, all right, so tell me about this whole salvation thing. That I get a lot, but in terms of a canned response, I don't have that.
I have found that it's easier, like not even necessarily even saying the word evolution or macro evolution, but just Alan did a whole session on this too, which just kind of reinforced it for me. But just this idea that it's pretty easy to point that to a creator, to intelligent design, that just look at the world around you. And he brought up irreducible complexity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That it's that this, he used a cell and a bacteria that.
Did you use the mousetrap analogy?
He used the mousetrap analogy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that all these things, if you take away in one part, the whole thing doesn't work.
It's no longer a mousetrap.
It would have to evolve all at once. It's just like overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Go to bed one thing, wake up the next day, and there's something else. And
right, because it's useless without all of its parts.
It doesn't make sense because without all the parts, your body and the systems and all that, the species would not have survived in the process of evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Everything would have died off because you are irreducibly complex. And,
right.
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have a nervous system, if you don't have a digestive system, if you don't have all these things, you don't exist. You die off. So there's not even the opportunity for more evolutions to come. It just doesn't work. You're a species.
So I used to be really scared of that. I used to think, man, I don't know how I'm not great at debating things. I'm not great at, I'll leave a conversation, and this is like every conversation. I'll leave a conversation and go, oh yeah, I meant to say that, or I should have said that.
Yeah.
I don't feel very quick on my feet with those sorts of things. But the more and more I've learned, I'm far less intimidated, and I don't think it would be. I don't think it would be that hard of a conversation. Obviously it depends on the person, but at a point, and this is something that was reinforced during the conference. I love how Alan Schleman will use quotes from
skeptics.
Atheists and naturalists, and there was one guy. Well, there were several actually that from this, and he said there were many more, but one guy who's a leading naturalist and an atheist saying that evolution. Because basically he said that if you're an atheist or a naturalist, evolution is your only option. Yeah. There are no other options for origins. And so he called it, the guy basically said it's a philosophy. This is a worldview that we have to believe in.
It absolutely is.
And to see that admission in an article is fascinating.
Yeah, because if you take away evolution, it made it possible for atheism to be an intellectual worldview. Because before evolution came, everybody had to ask the question, where'd all this stuff come from? Well, that even evolution doesn't answer that question.
Yeah.
But they had to say, how did we get here?
I said, no, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But they'll start there.
Yeah, he made the point that when Darwin comes out with The Origin of the Species, it made evolution and naturalism an intellectually satisfying worldview.
Absolutely.
Because before that, it's not satisfying. There is no explanation. Mm-hmm. And the only reason that people can be intellectually, quote unquote, satisfied is because now they've got a stance. They have a place to argue from for origins. Again, it's goofy and nonsensical. I with all due respect to the scientific world, I think naturalistic evolution is the dumbest argument to be made. I mean, it flies in the face of evidence. The explanations of, oh yeah, we understand there's no evidence for that, but give it millions of years, we got it. That is the most unscientific statement ever. Yet all of these people just naturally believe this. Even when in high school, when I'm not serious about my faith, I mean, I grew up in church, but I'm not learning how to articulate evidence for the existence of God in high school. We do that now at our church, but that wasn't the case when I was a kid. And even then, I thought, man, evolution is stupid. Like, that's a dumb argument.
I didn't. I thought it was I thought it was groundbreaking. I really did. When I was an atheist, it really had an impact on me.
There's so many gaps in it.
I didn't know that then. I believed what the professors were saying. They were smarter than me. They were educated. Why shouldn't I believe them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, which I think the majority of people take.
Well, so Kristen was watching this. So I was off yesterday. Kristen was watching this documentary series on Netflix called Explained.
Oh, it's so good.
And there was an episode on beauty. That why do we find, and they're asking the question, why do we find things, like why are certain things aesthetically pleasing? Why are they pleasing to the eye? Yeah. And they started talking about rectangles and how there's so many rectangles in society and in culture. And they had pictures of, like outlines of windows.
Get in an airplane. And look at the landscape.
And you know what they said? They went into this animated portion, and I had to go back. I recorded it on my phone because I'm like, I want to show our high schoolers this. But it's just everywhere, and they're like 175 million years ago when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and I'm like, okay, false.
Yeah.
And then they're like, to find the answer to this question, you actually have to look down at their feet. And it shows this little skitter mouse. Our ancestors, the skitter mouse, saw the world in, so I'm like, okay, false. Saw the world in only 2 colors. And I'm like, false. We don't even understand how dogs' eyes work. How did we understand supposedly how a skitter mouse's eyes 175 million years ago worked? Yeah. I'm like, that's ridiculous. They saw it in two colors. And so as they scanned the landscape, they would see these certain shapes, and they started on the animation putting like rectangles up in the air, and they're like, and then they replaced those rectangles with like credit cards and stuff, modern stuff, and like that's why we like
this is what they
rectangles.
It's
and
amazing.
I'm like, that is the dumbest thing. I was mad.
Yeah, how is that scientific?
I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. It was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard, and people watch this. 10 years ago, I would have watched that and not thought anything of it. I would go, oh, yeah, 175 million years ago. That sounds about right.
Cool.
That's what they think now. That must be true.
Yeah.
And
100%, I would have believed
during
it.
the whole conference, I kept coming back to, it just reinforces for me Romans 1, that from the creation of the world, God's invisible attributes, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen in what has been made, so that men are without excuse. And it says, even though they knew God, they did not glorify him as God or give thanks, but they became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools. I mean, that's really, I think, the only explanation of why the world is the way it is that God's nature and his divine nature and his attributes are clearly seen, but men suppress the truth because
man, that's so true.
We have to, if that's true, then we are accountable to that creator.
Yep. Claiming to be wise, they became fools. I love that verse because if you've ever heard, actually, Alan Schleman had brought up the book Friday night. What's the astrophysicist? I can't remember. But Stephen
Hawking?
No, but he made the claim that nothing actually isn't nothing. Hawking said the same thing, though, that because you have gravity, something can come from nothing. So claiming to be wise, they were actually fools. They have to redefine the word nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing is the absence of something. I think it was Aristotle that said nothing is what rocks dream about. I mean, nothing is nothing. Nothing can't come from... I mean, they would rather believe in the scientific impossibility that everything came from nothing.
Yep.
It's foolish.
And they don't even question it.
No.
Because this helps me feel better about rejecting any thought of God. I don't have to worry about God.
Yep.
I don't have to worry about morality. I can do whatever I want to do. And I'm answerable to no one because, well, that's my truth. And again, I'm not answerable to anyone anyway. So I'm good to go. But that doesn't solve the intellectual crisis. It doesn't actually answer any of your questions. All you've done is create more questions.
Yeah. Have you guys heard of this new Chat GTP that's out? It's this AI, super intelligent.
From you.
Yeah. It's super intelligent. Put it this way, Bill Gates has dumped $10 billion into it. I mean, it's going to revolutionize everything. I've been debating.
It's going to bring about the events of the Terminator?
Well,
it's going to become self-aware and destroy us?
I mean, there's been very intelligent
Someone call Sarah Connor.
John Connor.
Let her know it's coming.
There are people who are, Stephen Hawking before
more of a Terminator 2 fan.
That this is the greatest fear of man is that, robots will become sentient.
Yep.
And take over.
Again, I've seen Terminator.
Yeah. So I've been debating Chat GTP. just to see what it knows. So I asked it actually this morning at 2:00 because I couldn't sleep, which is normal. This is what I do. I'm debating ChatGPT, and I said, where did the information come from the first single cell? And it lists 3 probabilities. And I said, and one of them was because of evolution, it is possible. And I ask it, dig in deeper. How? And it says, because of evolution, this is possible. Yeah. So so in a single cell, there is an ungodly amount of information inside the cell.
Yeah.
It's like a blueprint if you think about it, and it instructs it's got directions on how to put this thing together.
Yep.
Where does information come from? It comes from a mind. It doesn't. You cannot get information from nothing. So the first single cell already had to have the blueprint ready for it to be put together. Yep. And they have no answer for this whatsoever.
Again, before the era of electron microscopes and all the stuff that we have, the discovery of DNA and all of that, a single cell looks like a blob on a slide. So of course it's unintelligent. Yeah, that could come from the goo, the primordial ooze. Goo to you by way of the zoo. And
I've never heard that before.
Really?
Yeah. It's like the mockery statement of summary of evolution, goo to you by way of the zoo. And I can see why they could say that can come out of that. But now knowing what we know that's in that cell, down at its core with the genetic code that's in that can literally write things into existence, replicate and all of that. No, that doesn't just magically appear.
Yeah. So my best friend, who's a diehard atheist, he said that, he's like, well, once scientists put together a single cell in a laboratory, I'll prove you wrong. I go, no, you just proved that an intellectual being created a cell.
Yes.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you proved my point.
Yeah.
It has to come from
someone.
And as intelligent as the human species is, we still can't do that.
Right.
So you're telling me that random chance did it, and as smart as we are, we still can't.
We can even dissect a single cell, put it all together inside a petri dish, and we can let it sit there for as long as we want, and the parts will never put themselves back together.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't happen. But they'll hang on to their worldview.
Yeah. It's surprising.
Yeah.
Which I would like to think that, again, at the same time, evolution is by far the most popular view globally and certainly in our culture. Yet at the same time, the vast majority also believe in a deity of some kind. I would like to think that the explanation for that, because those don't go together. Naturalistic evolution and God are not compatible views.
They're not.
I'd like to think that it's out of an attempt for intellectual honesty, that, there has to be a God of some kind, because this evolutionary concept just doesn't quite make sense. It doesn't satisfy the curiosity because it doesn't. It is nonsensical.
Yeah. Apologetics is much like Batman's utility belt.
Now we're talking.
Yeah, I knew you'd like this.
Yeah.
You have got so many different weapons that you can use. I mean, we're just hitting biology here.
You got batarangs.
Yeah,
you got grappling hooks.
Shark spray. The original show.
You got smoke bombs.
Adam West. He's on a ladder hanging from the bottom of a helicopter over the ocean, and a shark comes up, and he pulls shark spray out of his utility belt and sprays it.
I bet he's got some gum in there.
Yeah.
When he gets older, he's probably got some Tums.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. He's got it all, man. Yeah. R.I.P. Adam West.
Oh my gosh, that was funny.
Oh, thank you.
I had the laugh track. That was good. That's worth the laugh track.
Yeah.
What does Mr. Scream have to say about that?
Biology is one field. We haven't even talked about theological arguments, philosophical arguments,
astrophysics. I mean, even
you've
Einstein.
got it all.
Even Einstein never converted fully over to Christianity, but he was a theist or a deist, whatever he wants to call it. But I mean, he looked at the way that the universe was set up and thought, this is not something that I can, we can intellectually just whisk away like it doesn't exist. So even he was his problem was sin. He loved his sin. He liked the ladies, and he wasn't willing to hand that over.
Yeah.
So,
well, the two guys that discovered DNA immediately abandoned their evolutionary views, but could not force themselves to begin to believe in a God. They were the first ones to propose the panspermia view that life was seeded, planted on the earth by an advanced alien race. Because that was the only explanation for something as complex as DNA. Again, which is technically intelligent design.
sure.
But, heaven forbid we go to a belief in a God who could do that. Aliens make way more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all you've done is back up the argument.
You kick the can down the
Where'd
road.
the aliens come from? At some point, you have to get to the real issue
Right.
here that makes Christianity intellectually satisfying.
And not to mention, you still have to answer for where did all this stuff come from? We know for a fact that all time, space, and matter came into existence at one point in time.
Yep.
And I mean, the odds of that happening, 1 to the 10 to the 120th power, which is phenomenally insane. I mean, that is just, it's impossibility stacked on top, impossibility on top. It's just impossible. Yep. And they still can't account for that. But they'll say something ridiculous like panspermia.
Yeah, the aliens did it.
Yeah.
But again, watch some movies. Watch Prometheus, which is part of the Alien franchise, and all of that. I mean, that's the whole point of the movie. That's how life got here. Is the alien comes down, lands, and just dissolves himself into a creek in the mountains, and boom, life. How is that more logical to believe in than in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth? Why is that illogical? That just doesn't compute.
So have you ever heard someone say that apologetics doesn't have a place in the church because you can't argue someone into the kingdom? Have you ever heard that before?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think that's foolish. I'm literally proof of.
Yeah. I don't think it is the way everybody gets saved. If I can just present you
100%,
the evidence, and I can argue you into the kingdom. No, that's not the point. It's just like sharing the gospel. This is the means by which God draws people to Himself. For those who have that intellectual bent and they need that argument, it does help because it knocks down some of those barriers, and the Lord swoops in and starts flipping switches. It's a means of evangelism. Why wouldn't we embrace that? That's just goofy. Again, it's that anti-intellectualism idea of the faith that if you're going to be a Christian, you have to be stupid. Check your brain at the door before you come in, because we're not going to engage your intellect. It's all about how you feel and just have faith. Last time I checked, Hebrews 11 told us faith is evidence of things unseen. That it's both. It's okay to want evidence. When after the resurrection, when Thomas is doubting and says, unless I can see the holes in his hands, and the spear wound in his, unless I can see that, I won't believe. Jesus does not condemn him for that. Jesus shows up and goes, here you go. Look, touch. It's fine.
Yeah.
He doesn't condemn that. Jesus is not intimidated by your desire for evidence. He willingly offers it.
Yeah.
Open your eyes and look around. He gave you a whole bunch of it.
What a good God.
Yeah. He didn't make himself invisible. He didn't hide from us. He revealed himself in Scripture, first and foremost, and in nature, which is referred to as the second book. We have the first book in the Bible. Nature's the second book.
Yep.
Read them both.
Yeah, and we have nothing to fear. Max, have you ever been challenged? I mean, you've got a good friend that's a non-believer, and he kind of presses your buttons every once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I've come to faith is maybe different than, you've openly said that apologetics is the reason you came to faith.
Yeah.
I think it's more of, like you just mentioned, something in my tool belt that the more my faith grows, maybe started out I had unwarranted ignorant faith, just, God was working in me. I wasn't sure how. And the more my faith develops, I'm learning these things for a reason. And, it's for reasons like you just mentioned. I have a couple good friends I've talked to in the past week who are non-believers. One even said he is a theist. So, I think he's a perfect person to speak, on things like apologetics. Say these are, facts.
Yeah.
This is not my opinion or my feeling. But like you said, it's another key in the tool belt.
Yeah. You don't get nervous when like you're challenged.
I mean, I think that's normal. Especially when you're talking to someone who you disagree with. I'm not, kind of like John, I'm not here to argue with everybody. That's not how I like to live my life. But,
I mean, you have grown so much in the last year too. I mean, all of us have. I mean, who doesn't when they just saturate their minds in scripture and in apologetics? I mean, it seems like it's the natural response to just
you can't help but to grow.
Right.
You're gonna grow.
Or to talk about it. You find yourself talking about it more at work and with your friends. I mean, you've got a good friend that's
to people who probably don't want to hear it sometimes.
right. Yeah.
But I mean,
I definitely, that, and I also have a lot more conversations about the stuff at home. And a lot of it boils down to, some of it is proactive, but the majority of it is just reactive to things that I'll hear something in the other room and my boys are watching something on TV and I'll pause it. I'm like, hey, rewind it. What did they just say? And so we'll have a conversation about worldview and, the thing my wife was watching yesterday. I can't get over it.
Yeah.
This is bizarre.
Skitter mice, is that what they were called?
Yeah.
I've never even heard of that. But that's why I like rectangles, huh? That's why Visa made their credit card in the form of a rectangle. It's because of Skitter mouse 120 million years ago.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that's a perfectly reasonable, logical explanation for things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these screens behind you are very aesthetically pleasing right now.
They are.
These rectangles.
I mean, the thing there with the license plates, all the picture frames,
Lots
the
of
lights,
rectangles in here, isn't
the
there?
mirror, the phone that's recording us right now.
Yeah.
I love what you said.
Thank you for the Skitter mouses.
Yes.
And thank you, Steve Jobs, for making the phone.
I love what you said about Christians feeling like, or people feeling like if you're a Christian, you have to check your brain at the door.
Oh man.
And on the flip side of that, I now see it as a responsibility to, and I have the desire to learn, not just like, oh, you know what, maybe I should, or I could learn these things, but it's like, wow, I'm a Christian. I'm a student.
Yeah.
I'm gonna study, and because God has given us things that He wants us to know, and we can spend our whole lives knowing them, and so in seeking knowledge isn't a bad thing.
No, that's a good thing.
Yeah, and it is definitely not an intellectual thing. I mean, when I first came to faith, I thought all Christians were just knuckle draggers. I really did. And then I got introduced to people like R.C. Sproul. I mean, come on. And then
one of the most brilliant philosophers.
Alvin Plantinga.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes
Plantinga.
The list goes on and on
It's a
and
funny
on.
name.
But here's something else that I thought about before we were doing this podcast. I was thinking of Christopher Hitchens, and those of you who don't know, just my opinion, my favorite atheist. Skilled debater. He cheated. I mean, he would even, so he spoke with a British accent, and he would say that he would crank up his British accent because it made the audience,
makes him sound smarter.
yeah, especially when he's in America. So he
Yep.
he would dial that up a notch. So it made him sound more dead serious. He really says that.
Yeah.
But what's interesting
I'm
about
jealous.
that, and a lot of people don't know this, Christopher Hitchens, one of the world's leading atheists, has a brother, and his name is Peter.
Yep.
Anybody want to guess what Peter believes in? God.
Yeah.
He's a Christian, professing
Quite
Christian.
famously became a
Yes.
Christian.
Yes.
You didn't give me a chance to guess. I was trying to think of something.
We can edit that out. That way you sound really smart.
Oh, okay.
No, but it's
And has books about it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And debated his brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, to think, if you're going to be a person of faith, you have to be a person of ignorance. That those two things go hand in hand. That's just false. So over the years, I tend to be a bit on the academic side, and I love deep theology, for crying out loud. I read systematic theology books, and
we love you for it.
yeah, all of that. I'm a self-confessed nerd and don't apologize for it. But over the years, and you guys probably have heard this as well, man, I certainly appreciate all the information and the knowledge of all of that. But man, just give me Jesus. I just want I just kind of love Jesus. That and then we're as if that's the settled argument. We don't need all that stuff. I just want to love Jesus. Okay, which Jesus are we talking about? Are we talking about the Jesus of history? Are we talking about the Christ of faith? Are we talking about the Jesus revealed in the Bible? Are we talking about one you fabricated in your imagination? And once we establish what Jesus we're talking about and where you're getting your information about him, why is he worth your love? Why would you love him? Is it because of just how great he is? Is it because he died for you and forgives your sins? What is it that makes Jesus lovable? So what have we just done? We've done incredibly deep theology. We're talking about natural revelation. We're talking about Christology. We're talking about inspiration of Scripture. You're getting your knowledge there. What makes Jesus so lovely and lovable? We're talking about redemption and propitiation and the atonement. We're talking about very deep, involved theological views. So when you say something stupid like, oh, I just want to love Jesus, that's a deeply theological statement.
Yeah.
That you need to understand. There's a lot that went in to that one sentence you just said.
Yeah, it's not just this emotional response.
It is not.
There's an intellectual
Yep.
love the Lord God with all your heart.
A lot of
mind,
intelligence
soul.
that went into that.
Yeah.
So don't dismiss intellectual stuff with dumb comments like that, because that's not what we're talking about here. Because let's talk about Jesus and why he's so lovely and why he deserves our love, and we just want to love him. Let's talk about that. We call that theology.
Yeah, and if you look at like a lot of the Puritans back then, they looked at the way things were built and designed, and speaking from the way of creation, and they were like, "How does this work? Let's glorify God in the way."
Yeah,
I mean, Isaac Newton was
the field of science. Was created. Again, that hasn't always been in existence. The field of science as we know it was created by Christians who wanted to give more glory to God because they believed the more we discovered about the world God created, the more glory he's going to get because of it.
They thought
that's the origin of science.
Yep. They thought they were thinking God's thoughts after him.
Yes.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we go after this? It makes God even greater.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
Do you know who else was really intelligent? Batman. He's the world's greatest detective. Hey, if you would like, if you'd like to see any of the videos from our Apologetics conference, they will be available on YouTube as private YouTube links. Stand to Reason has asked that we do that. So please email me for access, John, JOHN, @BroadwayCC.org.
Yeah. Happily get you the info.
Yep. You guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Max, this was a far better podcast than we've ever had, probably because it's you and not Sean.
Oh,
That's so mean.
No, it's so true. It's so true.
Well, I'm not gonna jump on Sean, but I enjoyed being on, guys. So
Anytime.
thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.